Hey everyone, Brandon here. Before we launch into the incredible things I have planned for this channel in 2025, let's take a look back at every Pokemon of every type video made in 2024. Enjoy! With Easter being tomorrow, naturally my mind went to one thing: bunnies. So today I wanted to explore what a bunny or rabbit of every type might look like. We currently have about half the types taken up by these lagomorphic lads here, and no, I'm not counting Megalopony as it's form exclusive and is a secondary type. But anyway, let's get started filling these types with the ice type. And for this we have Bunsky from Apophegmon's Metis region. Naturally, this frosty fellow with his goggles, snowsuit-like fur, long feet, and name are inspired by skiing. And as such, this Pokemon's favorite pastime is speeding down slopes. The higher up the mountain and more risk involved, the more fun it is for this Pokemon. And another rabbit Pokemon known for fun antics is our Dark type, Harlequer, the Jester Pokemon, a psychic Dark type who I worked with Mauistex to create. This clearly mischievous bunny was from my first Fakemon region, Cornera, and is inspired by Harlequins and the Harlequin Rabbit. Harlequins are known for being witful tricksters, hence its psychic Dark type, and Harlequin Rabbits are known for their starkly contrasting colors, like the stark contrast between psychic and Dark type. This Pokemon actually evolves from a normal type, so I gave it a new ability called Ruminate, which turns normal type moves into psychic type moves, like Pixelate with fairy types or Refrigerate with ice types. Harlequer can either be a defiant trickster or a loyal entertainer. Which side you get depends on its mood. You know what always bugs me when making these kinds of videos? Bugs. I mean, how do you mix a rabbit with an insect? Oh, that's? Are you sure that counts as a second insect has hit the tap? Okay, yeah, got it. Great idea, me. So allow me to introduce Sluggle, the slug bunny Pokemon, a bug water type that I worked with Kai Fakemon to create. This little guy is inspired by the sea bunny, a type of fluffy sea slug that, as its name implies, happens to look like an adorable itty-bitty rabbit. We tried to take a page from the Pyukumuku playbook when designing Sluggle to add to the cute factor. Just like its real-life counterpart, this Pokemon is a slug that just happens to take the appearance of a rabbit, but has soft fur that makes it just as snuggly as a real one, hence its name, which combines slug and snuggle. Sluggle spends most of its time on the sea floor, cuddling up against Pokemon that look cold. Its fur on contact releases a soothing and warming chemical that leaves the recipient feeling very pleasant. I know we all wanted to cuddle the sea bunny when we first saw it, so this Pokemon fulfills that dream. And from the realm of dreams, we travel to the realm of nightmares with the ghost type. And for this, I introduce you to Bunpire, the Bundead Pokemon, a pure ghost type that I worked with Fungusmon to create. When thinking of a supernatural rabbit to use as an inspiration for the ghost type, my mind went to none other than the classic book series Bunnicula by Deborah and James Howe. The books are about a mysterious rabbit with a vampiric appearance that sucks out the juice of carrots rather than eating them. Its haunting visage leads to it being blamed for every mysterious event that takes place in the different books, but spoiler alert, Bunnicula is innocent pretty much every time. The same can be said for Bunpire, who has a bit of an unsettlingly cute look. This has led to many rumors of the truly terrifying things that this Pokemon is capable of, when in reality it's just a little ghost rabbit. This is why, despite it having a darker coloration and vampires typically being evil beings, I refrained from giving Bunpire the dark type. This Pokemon does get a new signature move though, Drain Fang, a base 55 ghost type move that absorbs HP equal to 50% of the damage done to the target. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked we don't have a ghost type move that drains HP yet, so with this one we do. Draining someone's life force is also an attribute of our next rabbit, just in a different way. Meet Subliminaire, the Brainwash Pokemon, a steel psychic type that I also worked with Kai on. This robotic-looking Lapin is inspired by the kind of uncanny valley feeling of looking at a hair straight on, and a dated piece of technology, the TV antenna, which are also known as rabbit ears. Where the psychic type and its name come from are the idea of subliminal messaging. Media sneaking in hidden messages within your TV programming to brainwash you into doing exactly what they want you to do. Which is exactly what Subliminaire does as well. It uses its hypnotic eyes and powerful mind to persuade you into doing its bidding. This manifests in its signature ability, Brainwasher, which makes it so anyone who hits Subliminaire with a contact move becomes confused and has their stats reset. Though this Pokemon seems malevolent given its abilities, it really only uses them in the wild to make potential predators forget it even existed, becoming an echo of a memory. And echoes are what our next bunny is all about. So meet Ekop, the acoustic Pokemon, a pure rock type which I created with Kai as well. This Pokemon would honestly be right at home in the Cornera region, as it's inspired by the Red Rock Hare and by Red Rock's Park and Amphitheater found in Morrison, Colorado. This amphitheater is near and dear to my heart as I have been many times, and it is a fantastic music venue, and the acoustics go absolutely crazy. So infuse a rabbit's huge ears, which are perfect for picking up sounds, and you got yourself Ekop. Its category of the acoustic Pokemon comes from its ability, Acoustic Rock, which makes sound-based moves become the Rock type, like Liquid Voice but for the Rock type. Ekop use their ears that are abnormally receptive to sound to track other Pokemon and keep itself hidden amongst the craggy cliffs and mountain faces it calls home. I mentioned Cornera with our last bunny, which leads me into this next entry. There's been a Pokemon concept I've been wanting to redo for a long while, and I felt this would be the best time as our next entry is the Flying type. In Cornera, I made a ground fairy type Dust Bunny Pokemon called Dust Bunny, and if I'm being 100% honest with myself, I always wished I had handled the concept differently, and the name is honestly just bad. So for our new and improved Dust Bunny Pokemon, meet Dustuft, the Dust Bunny Pokemon, a flying ground type that I also worked with Kai on. The specific kind of rabbit that Dustuft is inspired by are French Angora rabbits. With them looking like big old poofs, it matched perfectly with a Dust Cloud inspired Pokemon. Dustuft leap and bound high in the air over its habitat of dry plains and deserts. Some say it can become one with the wind and float forever despite not having wings. Speaking of wings, we move on to the Dragon type. I had a surprisingly tough time combining a dragon with a rabbit. I went through many ideas in my head and nothing clicked. But then one idea hit my brain and oh boy did it click. I tried to think of a winged rabbit, which led me to the Wolpertinger, a Germanic creature that has the head of a rabbit, the body of a squirrel, the wings of a pheasant, and the antlers of a deer. Move over, Jackalope, there's a cooler rabbit cryptid in town. The chimeric nature of this creature made me think of, well, a chimera. A mix between a lion, goat, snake, and sometimes a dragon or an eagle. And then I thought of another kind of rabbit breed, the Lionhead. And all those concepts fused in my head to create Wolperush, the Whirlwind Pokemon, a dragon flying type that I also worked with Fungusmon on. Wolperush are known to be fast and furious creatures, able to create mighty vortexes of wind by flying in circles around an opponent. This Pokemon would absolutely learn Dragon Rush, Whirlwind, and Hurricane along with a new move, Acceledrake, a base 30 priority physical dragon type move that raises speed by one stage. Basically like a weaker Accelerock that also raises speed. And last but certainly not least, what would this video be without an Easter Bunny Pokemon? So for the fighting type, we have Lapaint, the Color Splash Pokemon, a fighting fairy type that I also worked with Fungusmon on. Lapaint can summon a sticky paint-like substance from the tips of its ears that they will throw like grenades at their opponents, exploding in a vivid display and covering their foes. This is their signature move, Color Splash, a base 50 special fairy type move that lowers the target's speed by 2 stages. The base concept of this guy was, what if the Easter Bunny was rad as hell? And that's basically it. And that's it for this video. Thank you to our lovely members that you can see some of on screen for supporting the channel with their hard-earned money, which you can also do by hitting that join button. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Pseudo-legendary Pokemon, known as the 600 Club in Japan, a group of Pokemon defined by their powerful 600 base stat total, and most are part Dragon type. So given it is Smogus, we're going to take a look at what a Dragon pseudo-legendary of every type might look like. Hey everyone, Brandon here. So we have about 7 or 8 types covered by previous pseudos, depending on if you count Hisui and Gudra in that lineup. If you don't, here is the Acarane line from Mike Orion's Luika region, who worked with JJmons. Acarane is based on Akar, an Egyptian deity of the underworld and a personification of the horizon. It is either represented as twin lions or a mighty guardian dragon. So Michael included elements of both in their designs. It also has elements of Egyptian royalty, hence the rain part of its name. This line's hardened body has made them perfect for defending the royalty of Luika, even going so far as to protect their tombs. For the poison types, we have Salavino, Mortero, and Thanamorte from Dark and Windy. These 3 are based on the Longma, which was basically a Chinese Pegasus with the scales of a dragon. Where its poison typing comes in is through its other partial inspiration of a Komodo dragon, whose bite is venomous both due to the venom gland in its lower jaw and the fact that their saliva hosts a myriad of harmful bacteria. This line's scales are incredibly toxic, flaking off at times, causing cases of intense pain, paralysis, and muscle spasms. Onto the rock type, we have Babygon, Zigguron, and Mardukan from Apovikmon's Kashian region. These 3 are based on the ancient city of Babylon, its god Marduk, the mythical dragon said to be their servant, Mushusu, and the lapis-covered Ishtar Gate. The gate itself had depictions of the Mushusu and symbolized Marduk, so this mixture of concepts is very well done. Zigguron has the additional inspiration of a ziggurat, which were massive rectangular structures built in ancient Mesopotamia. This line's hardened scales provide great protection from the harsh environment in which they hail from. They will defend the weak until their last breath, which makes them great guardians of ancient cities. Next up for the Psychic type, we have Aegon, Astragon, and Terrestragon from Inua Continent. These Pokemon tap into the more cosmic side of the Psychic type, with all of them being a mixture of dragons, aliens, and meteors. The first two stages of this line have a shell constructed of meteorites, and can move at extraordinary speeds using their psychic power. Terrestragon's psychic power is strong enough that its mere presence is said to cause crippling migraines. And you'll give me a crippling migraine if you don't hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. So please go do that. The Tylenol isn't working. For the Fairy type, we have Pixme, Aquarius, and Dracampus from Tubs-AZ's Agoros region. This line presents an interesting case as the first two stages aren't actually the dragon type, but water instead. Obviously, this line is based on seahorses, but it is also based on sea nymphs and mermaids, presenting a more beautiful and feminine pseudo, as opposed to many of the others that are more hardened and edgy. Dracampus additionally draws inspiration from the hippocampus and the many sea serpents of Greek mythology. This line can be found around the Agorian Sea, with their shimmering scales able to blind their opponents from sheer beauty, and with even one being worth a small fortune. On to the electric type, we have Dusmy, Egohis, and Agorgon from Elite Four. This line is based around Medusa, egocentrism, and the evolution of drag culture. Really putting the drag in dragon. Dusmy is an attention seeker and wants praise for its beauty, but when it evolves into Egohis, it hides itself away behind a fake head-like tail used to distract or blind opponents. And finally, upon evolving into Agorgon, its glowing colors thrive. Its mere glance can paralyze opponents, and its shed skin is considered an extremely valuable high-fashion item. And now we venture into some pseudo-lines I had commissioned. If you want to help me commission more Pokemon like the ones you're about to see, become a member. You get benefits like seeing videos early, a shout out at the end of my videos, and the Art Mage tier directly funds for one Fakemon design a month, which you are credited for and given a high quality image of. So hit that join button to help me pay these lovely artists I work with for these videos and to keep this channel going. First up, we have two pseudo lines that I worked with the talented trainer Rex on. Check out their link in the description. The premise of a normal type pseudo was interesting to me because there are so many ways to represent that type. What I ultimately decided on was the most normal thing would be a dragon that could be a pet. So here is our base stage, Regtile, the common Pokemon, a normal dragon type. This little guy is based on a pet many lizard owners should know, the bearded dragon. Regtile also has this little collar to add to its whole pet aesthetic. Regtile is proof that big things come in small packages. It is a powerful Pokemon with the potential to become even more powerful in its evolutions. Speaking of, at level 30, Regtile evolves into Standrake, the common Pokemon. Upon evolution, this line gains the additional inspiration of yet another lizard that can be a pet, the aptly named Common Flying Dragon. This lizard is found across Southeast Asia and can use its wing-like extensions on its body to glide. Standrake may be a bit less common than Regtile, but still are a staple of many teams of the region it hails from. At level 45, Standrake evolves into Avragon, the average Pokemon. So now that we have the entire line shown, I can talk a little bit more about its concept. The idea was a fairly common pet evolving into the most stereotypical fantasy dragon ever. Like, look at Avragon and tell me that isn't the most dragony dragon Pokemon you've ever seen. Like it was ripped straight from the pages of the D&D player's handbook. Avragon's name comes from both average and dragon, but also comes from avarice, as typically dragons are greedy hoarders of gold and other treasures. Even though they are a lot more fierce and powerful than their previous stages, Avragon are still sometimes kept as pets, even acting like a big old dog, a real golden retriever energy type pet. Then moving on to the bug type, we have Spycrawl, the worm Pokemon, a bug dragon type. This little guy is based on the appropriately named dragon-headed caterpillar, given the horn-like protrusions coming from its head. It can be found from India all the way down to Indonesia. Spycrawl's horns can leave a burning sensation upon contact with them. It can last for days unless medically treated. At level 32, Spycrawl evolves into Crestalis, the horned Pokemon. Though caterpillars usually turn into butterflies, they look remarkably similar to grubs, which turn into the pupa of beetles. So Crestalis is based on the pupa stage of the rhinoceros beetle, which felt like a natural step up on the horned nature of its previous stage. In and of itself, Crestalis looked like the head of a dragon, which plays back into its previous stage's inspiration. It also mimics middle stage pseudos like Pupitar or Shelgon. This Pokemon's impenetrable body guards a truly terrifying behemoth beneath. And that behemoth is unleashed at level 48 when it evolves into Dracrown, the Monarch Pokemon. Two more bugs join the inspirations of this line. The Atlas Beetle, with its 3 horns stepping up from the previous stage's 2 horns, and the wings and general coloration are inspired by the dragon-headed bug, a type of lanternfly found in Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, and parts of Brazil. Also with its general head shape, it mimics many ceratopsians, adding to its already prevalent dragon typing, and the rhinoceros part of its previous stage, as many associate the two animals, though they have no confirmed relation. There are folktales about Dracrown's ability to breathe fire. Scientists have discovered that it spawned from its burning hot horn, which can give the appearance of being on fire. which, needless to say, you do not want to be touched by. Now for the last three, we have the type trio usually held by starter Pokemon, which I worked with Trevenart on. Make sure to check out their link in the description. To start us off is the grass type, so allow me to introduce you to Petea, the fruit dragon Pokemon, a grass dragon type. Petea's name comes from petite, pet, and Petea, more commonly known to most as the dragon fruit. Many versions of a literal dragon fruit Pokemon have been done in the Fakemon community, so I wanted to try my hand at it with this pseudo line. Petea are incredibly energetic and playful creatures. Its fruity feathers can be steeped to make a revitalizing and refreshing tea. At level 32, Petea evolves into Luchea, the fight dragon Pokemon. Petea are native to southern Mexico, as well as Guatemala, Costa Rica, and El Salvador, so I felt it natural to incorporate some aspect of the culture from that area. So Trevin and I landed on Lucha Libre, a form of freestyle wrestling originating from Mexico. Halucha is obviously also based on this, but multiple Pokemon sharing origins but being handled differently is fairly common throughout this franchise. You can see the famous masks the sport is known for incorporated into Luchea and Petea's designs, and the vibrant colors of the dragon fruit made for a great reference to the colorful outfits of many wrestlers. Luchea are known for their high-flying antics and to use their bulky body to their advantage. This dex entry manifests in its new move called Dragon Press, which acts kind of like Body Press but would use the user's special defense stat instead of its attack stat when calculating damage, as Luchea's two main stats would be attack and special defense. At level 48, Luchea evolves into Quetzea, the flight dragon Pokemon. With a name and design like that, obviously the design is inspired by the Aztec god of life, light, and wisdom, Quetzalcoatl, who is most often depicted as a feathered, winged serpent. Just like Luchea, I wanted to bring in some form of Mesoamerican inspiration, given the area the dragon fruit is native to. I also felt the scales of the fruit felt kind of like feathers, which worked perfectly to build up to a winged serpent final stage. It still holds onto its high-flying luchador nature, with the pose looking like some famous acrobatic dives seen in Lucha Libre. Quetzea is known to soar over lush jungles, taking swift dives to crush their prey beneath their mighty body. I could really see this line working as the pseudo of some kind of Mexico region, and I'm very happy with how all the design elements came together. Next up is the water type. While doing research for the grass type, I came across a Vietnamese saying that I thought would make for an interesting Pokemon. The saying is a dragon's head but a shrimp's tail, meaning something that starts off great but then ends poorly. So basically Game of Thrones. That phrase also makes a great description for a water dragon type Pokemon. So here is Drimp, Drakimp, and Shrimrong. All of them have the category of the shrimp dragon Pokemon and are water dragon type. These three are not only inspired by the saying, but also by Vietnamese dragons or Rong, where Shrimrong gets part of its name. The coloration and lengthy body of Shrimrong are also meant to emulate the silk dragons used in dragon dances, as well as colorful shrimp species like the peacock mantis shrimp. Drimp and Drakimp live together in colonies. Only every once in a while does a Shrimrong come to visit. Once it does, it is treated with the highest honor. This behavior is inspired by another Vietnamese phrase, the dragon visits the shrimp's house, which dictates how you should behave when having guests in your home. The guest is a dragon, and you as the host are but a humble shrimp. Last but not least, we have the fire type. Dragons and fire. Like peanut butter and jelly, salt and pepper, the Nile crocodile, and Flat Friday. Why yes, that was a thinly veiled transition to meet this cutie. Meet Flatile, the mine Pokemon, a fire dragon type. As I said, this horizontally inclined little dude is inspired by the Nile crocodile, but it is also inspired by landmines and other explosive devices. Flatile remains stagnant for hours at a time, waiting for prey to pass over top of them before erupting fire out of the vents on their sides. Speaking of erupting, Flatile at level 30 evolves into Eruptile, the explosive Pokemon. This Pokemon's fiery body is well equipped for residing in extreme heat, such as the deserts it hails from and even the interior of volcanoes. The Nile crocodile inspiration is furthered with Eruptile into another African creature, the Ninkinanka, which was said to be a fearsome monster with the face of a crocodile, the neck of a giraffe, and a mix of the body of a hippo and snake. Taking a crocodile and evolving it into something that was part crocodile and almost draconic felt like a natural transition for the middle stage, which will make even more sense when at level 50, Eruptile evolves into Volcanosaur, the volcanic Pokemon. That long giraffe-like neck from the Ninkinanka is played up even further in this Pokemon to emulate the sauropod known as the Giraffatitan. Get it? Giraffatitan? I thought it was pretty clever. The Ninkinanka was also said to be able to breathe fire and smoke, or have a crest of fire atop its head. So Volcanosaur references this with the smoky plumes coming from its head, which also emulates its namesake, a volcano. Volcanosaur are titans of the Pokemon world. Their mighty heat is respected amongst fire-type Pokemon, and it is seen by many cultures as a harbinger of a fiery calamity. and that was a dragon pseudo-legendary of every type. If you'd like to see a non-dragon pseudo-legendary of every type, make sure to let me know in the comments. Thanks so much to our incredible members whose name you can see on screen for supporting this channel with their hard-earned money, which you can also do by hitting that join button. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you all next time. The early root bugs. Little insectoid companions near the start of every Pokemon game since the beginning. With 7 types between them, we have had 13 Pokemon lines fall under this category, 14 if you count Dustox as its own line. So with Halloween right around the corner, let's talk about some creepy crawlies with an early root bug of every type. Hey everyone, Brandon here. We have 11 types to fill since Game Freak thought bug poison or bug flying were the ultimate type combo of Route 1 bugs until Gen 6 apparently. Except for this little dude right here. Look at you breaking the cycle, you adorable little... Oh, the other types. Right. Well, let's get started with the ground type. With a myriad of ground-dwelling or burrowing bugs, there are so many options for what this type could be represented by. But my personal favorites are Grubber, Treadle, and Derbeetle from Tubbs AZ's Agoros region. Grubber and Treadle are obviously based on grubs, pupa, rubber, and tires. Derbeetle is based on rhinoceros beetles, dung beetles, and motor scooters, such as the very famous Vespa, which means wasp in Italian, yet another bug. Anyone else suddenly in the mood to watch Luca? Grubber uses the bumps on their back to protect their elastic body and roll around, which Treadle also does at high speeds, with its thick exoskeleton protecting it from potential damage. The dirt wheels Derbeetle creates are treasured possessions and can be devastating to the Pokemon if lost. For the fairy type, from Anartis to Stray, we have Burndle, Criscoon, and Muffluff. They are based on silkworms and a silk moth, but they have additional inspirations. Burndle is also based on a type of adult swaddling therapy called Otonomaki that is meant to help alleviate posture problems and stiffness, with the idea coming from Ohinamaki, in which babies are swaddled in a similar fashion, which is referenced in its dex entry where it will swathe itself in its own silk at birth and will begin eating immediately, which is exactly how I spend my Friday nights, swaddled and snacking. Criscoon is additionally based on a ball of yarn, and its dex entry references yarn's property of being susceptible to static electricity by sticking to things. Muffluff's light coat of fluff from its dex entry refers to moths being drawn to clothing, and the fact that silk is used in clothing. Let's move on to the fighting type, for which I chose Beefle, Punchbag, and Hercules from Elite Four. Beefle and Punchbag are based on combat training tools, and Hercules is based on the Hercules Beetle and sumo wrestlers. Hercules beetles during the mating season participate in a combat behavior to compete for female attention that is similar to sumo wrestling. Beefle spend their lives training to get stronger. If there are no Pokemon to battle, they will fight trees or rocks instead. Punchbag can take any impact without feeling any pain, but will get mad and attack if you hit their mouth. The more hits that Punchbag takes will make it even stronger when it evolves into Hercules. Hercules test their strength by fighting Hariyama and Heracross, but they won't battle against any weaker Pokemon. On to the rock type. For this, we have Wiggleam, Crystalis, and Diamoth from Michael Ryan's Fearin region. They are based on the Jeweled Caterpillar and the Diamondback Moth. Wiggleam and Crystalis are literal diamonds in the rough, using their hardened jewels to protect themselves from potential predators, and Diamoth's dazzling wings are coated in rare gems that glisten in the light. Make sure to check out Michael's video on these Pokemon for more information. For the normal type, what is the most common insect I can guarantee most people on the planet have encountered at least once in their life? Mosquitoes! So also from Tubbs AZ, we have Infestic, Kocovery, and Vaxquito. Alongside their mosquito basis, Infestic is based on thermometers and sickness, Kocovery is based on bandages and a recovering patient, and Vaxquito is based on nurses and vaccines. I find this line to be so interesting because it really flips the script on what mosquitoes are typically associated with, being the infected one that then becomes a healer rather than being the infector. Infestic is riddled with illnesses that will prevent it from evolution unless properly cared for, which upon evolving, Kocovery is in a constant state of recovering from said illnesses. When it evolves into Vaxquito, the vaccine-like fluid in its tail is capable of quickly healing minor illnesses. There is actually a split final evolution called Masquerte, which is part ghost type, though it actually isn't the ghost entry for this video. That distinction goes to the early root bugs from the Devar region, Lunarva, Gaboon, and Rohinoth. Wait, something looks different here. Oh yeah, I worked with JJmons to redesign Rohinoth into something truly spectacular. They even updated Lunarva and Gaboon a bit to match. I wasn't happy with the original design because it was rushed. I had the idea for it 2 weeks before the video it was featured in was supposed to release. So this redesign breathes new life into the Pokemon and gives it the love it deserves. It still maintains all of its design inspirations. Rohini, the goddess and consort to the moon god Chandra, which is accented by the more dress-like parts of its wings, the antennae to reference the Rohini satellite, blood and ghost moons, and the Indian moon moth. Its wings are now waxing and waning crescent moons, which come before and after a new moon, which refers to the fact that this is a new redesign of the original and acts as a new moon Pokemon. This redesign will replace the original in the final Dex video for the Devar region. I know a lot of you out there are slamming your keys to comment, "Devar mentioned, where is it?" And just trust me, it's coming back for the story video soon. Next, we move on to the Steel type. Something I've mentioned a few times in the past is that before Devar, I was actually designing a Spain and Portugal based region that I had named Ispar, which I decided to change to India right before Paldea was announced, and I am so thankful to my past self for changing course. But I did have some designs already made, one of which was an early root bug line. So allow me to introduce Carbug, the Carbon Bug Pokemon, Illuminus, the Carbon Cocoon Pokemon, and Recyclaw, the Carbon Shell Pokemon, which I worked with LSDeva076 to create. This line is based on a kind of insect called the Masked Hunter. As nymphs, they will cover themselves in dust to help camouflage with their surroundings. So the base idea behind this line was, what if instead of dust, it was scraps of recycled metal? Carbug gathers scraps of metal that it makes into a giant pile, then dives into to help it evolve into a Luminous, which you can see has scraps of metal from other Steel-type Pokemon, which I would like to say I had the idea first before the Tinkaton line was even close to being shown. Anyway, Game Freak somehow reading my mind aside, when a Luminous evolves, the infinity energy brought about from evolution fuses the metal with Recyclaw's carapace, making it finally become part Steel-type. Now we've reached some bugs I worked with Trainer Rex to create specifically for this video. Which, by the way, if you want to help support these artists and myself, become a member. Membership gets you perks like videos early, a shout out at the end of my videos, and the Art Mage tier directly funds for one Fakemon a month that you are credited for and receive a high quality image of. So become a member today, it really helps. So first up, we have the Water type. There are many different kinds of water-based bugs. Many have already been made into Pokemon. But there is one species that is yet to be made that Fakemon artists have been imagining for years now. And that is the Diving Beetle. Its aquatic nature makes for a perfect bug water type, and so I wanted to do my own take on the concept. So here is Scoobug, the diver Pokemon, a bug water type. As its name implies, this bug is also inspired by scuba diving. You can see that its eyes look like a scuba mask, its back legs look like flippers, and its coloration matches the stereotypical colors associated with scuba suits, as well as the dark brown color of many diving beetles. Scoobug are highly exploratory Pokemon. They enjoy finding new things both underwater and on land. At level 17, Scoobug evolves into Scoobian, the Bubble Claw Pokemon. Upon evolution, this Pokemon gains a few additional inspirations. First is the Water Scorpion and Giant Water Bugs, which come from the same suborder of Heteroptera and are water-based. Though its design doesn't reflect the Water Scorpion directly, Scoobian's tail functions similarly, acting like a breathing tube. It also uses this tail like an elephant's trunk, taking in and blasting out water, or as seen in its art, simply blowing bubbles. Scoobian's body shape is more inspired by the giant sea scorpions found 468 million years ago, but also reflects a life raft with oars, which Scoobian can act as, saving people and Pokemon alike who are lost at sea, with its bubble claws allowing it to safely place them atop its back. It will launch these claws out in an attack called Bubble Claw, a base 70 special water type move that has a high crit ratio, basically a special attacking version of Aqua Cutter. After that, we actually have two types, Fire and Ice. For these two, I thought, well, we've had an early root bug that has split evolutions before, so why don't we just do that again? So allow me to introduce Thermite, the thermal Pokemon, a pure bug type. Shoto Todoroki, eat your heart out. As its name implies, Thermite is based on termites, just a simple little bug with a unique color scheme to match its unique evolutions. Speaking of, Thermite evolves differently depending on both its gender and what kind of stone it is exposed to. If Thermite is female and exposed to an ice stone, it will evolve into Tundrosp, the Tundra Pokemon. Tundrosp is based on a couple insects. First is the Thistledown Velvet Ant, which not only sounds like a Bridgerton character, but also isn't even an ant. The Scandal! It is actually a form of wingless wasp. The other bug it is based on is Diggersby. Excuse me, on Diggerbees. Where Tundrop's ice typing comes in is its inspiration of the Snow Bees, which are what the characters of the story The Snow Queen called the snow she commanded. Elsa and Todoroki in the same Fakemon? We are like one step away from a full-blown fanfic here. A sting from Tundros can result in feeling ice cold for weeks, and even the frozen status, which is actually their signature move, Frost Sting, a base 60 physical bug type move with a 25% chance to freeze the opponent. And if Thermite is male and exposed to a Firestone, it will evolve into Infirmidon, the Inferno Pokemon. Obviously, this guy is based on a fire ant, but taken literally. It is more specifically based on red imported fire ants, or Rifa for short. Its gladiatorial body shape and name are inspired by the legend of the Myrmidons, warriors that were transformed from ants by Zeus in order to protect the kingdom of his son Myrmidon, from which they get their name. And Myrmidon also has a signature move similar to Tundrosp, called Blaze Sting, which is the same as Frosting but has a 25% chance to inflict burn instead. Wasps and ants come from the same suborder of Apocrida, so having them evolve from the same Pokemon made sense, even if termites aren't really related to either. But come on, that name was too perfect, and termites are super similar to ants. These two also share the theme of serving royalty, with the Snowbees serving the Snow Queen and the Myrmidon serving Myrmidon. In their design, I tried to minorly reflect the vibes of previous generations where there were two early root bugs, with one being a bit more rounded and cutesy, and the other being a bit more hardened looking and creepy. Last but not least, we have the Dragon type, which let me tell you, was the most difficult to decide on in this entire video. I just could not land on a concept that I was happy with for like a whole week's worth of working. Bug Dragon type has been a type combo consistently dunked on with so many chances to have happened already, so I wanted to make sure I did it right with this Pokemon. But eventually, I found something that I was happy with. So allow me to introduce Dazzure, the Dragonfly Pokemon, a pure bug type, which at level 26 evolves into Henjure, the superpower Pokemon, a bug dragon type. That's right, we spun the block back on a Dragonfly Pokemon, but we also have ourselves another Tokusatsu-inspired Pokemon. Henjure's name comes from Henshin, a very common term used in Toku series which means transform. Henjure's design is also inspired by the Emperor Dragonfly, Tombo Oger, the Dragonfly Ranger from the Super Sentai series Osama Sentai King Oger, the Red Mystic Ranger Dragon Battleizer, and Kamen Rider Drake from Kamen Rider Kabuto. Can we just take a second to look at this writer's design? Like, this is peak. The Dragonfly coming across the arms and chest with the wings creating a shoulder pad? Incredible. Anyway, Henjure's wings are meant to look like blades, which many rangers use as their primary weapon. This would also be referenced in its new signature move Blade Wings, a base 65 special dragon type move with a high crit ratio. This move refers to the powered up slash attacks many Sentai and Power Rangers teams do, with the high crit ratio referencing how sometimes that can be the final attack of the battle, and sometimes not. Dazzure is inspired by the blue Dasher Dragonfly and the Mecha or Zords from Power Rangers and Super Sentai. I thought the idea of the mech evolving into the ranger itself would be interesting. And with the addition of Henjure, we have a full team of Tokusatsu bug Pokemon, with Henjure acting as the Blue Ranger, Lokix the Black Ranger, and Ledian the Red Ranger. And that is an early root bug of every type. Thank you so much to our incredible members whose names you can see on screen for supporting this channel with their hard-earned money, which you can also do by hitting that join button. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Mushrooms! Autumn is definitely in the air, and I know all my cottagecore lovers are feeling it too. So to help set the mood before Old Man Winter serves us a shot of Depresso, let's make some new fungus among us with a mushroom Pokemon of every type. Hey everyone, Brandon here. We currently have 8 types occupied by existing mushroom Pokemon, which leaves 10 types to be filled. And yes, this little guy counts. So to start us off, let's go with the Psychic type. Given the psychedelic properties of certain fungus, it is honestly a shock that we haven't had a mushroom Pokemon of this type yet. But Michael Ryan went a little bit of a different direction with Sporcerer and Enchanterel from the Firen region. As their names and designs imply, these cuties are based on mushrooms and magic users like sorcerers and wizards. They are literally magic mushrooms. To learn more about them, make sure to check out Michael's video linked in the card or in the description. I love mushrooms, y'all. So I went a little crazy with this one and commissioned artists to make the remaining 9 types. I just had so many ideas I wanted to execute on. And if you want to help me pay the artists I work with, hit that join button. On top of my undying appreciation, you get benefits like videos early, a shout out at the end of my videos, or even paying for one Fakemon design a month that you are credited for and receive a high quality image of. So become a member today. Even if it's only the novice tier, any little bit helps me continue to make videos just like these. With that said, for this first design, I worked with Kai Fakemonosaur a long time ago on a normal type mushroom line that was just for a personal commission. But it just worked too well for me to not share it with y'all. So first up, we have Tadstool, the Toadstool Pokemon, a grass normal type. A toad and a mushroom in one design? Now I know the cottagecore people are popping off. This little guy is based on Criminy mushrooms and the stage between tadpole and frog that is called a froglet, which I think is just an adorable name for it. Tadstool is also based around the same concept as Fomantis and Lurantis, which is defensive mimicry. It's a fungus Pokemon that has grown to look like a frog so that bug Pokemon won't prey on it. It hangs around swampy areas in which it can provide itself nutrition safely even with the abundance of its natural predators. At level 22, Tadstool evolves into Crowcap, the Bog Bell Pokemon. It's so happy! And rightfully so. It has grown big enough that being the prey really isn't a worry for it. And with its big old lily pad feet, it can walk across the pond water with ease. Its category is one of its added inspirations, which is the bog bell mushroom. This mushroom grows near swamps throughout North America and Europe. Its beard is a reference to a different kind of plant called the string of frogs. Aside from sounding like the name of a 90s ska band, this plant most definitely lives up to its name and infuses even more froggy goodness into this design. If you guys are enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment down below letting me know your favorite design of the video. For the next few types, I worked with the artist Trainer Rex. Make sure to check out their link and the rest of the artists for this video in the description, as they all do incredible work. In the early days of creating my India-based Pokemon region, Devar, there was a name for an Ice-type mushroom Pokemon that popped into my head, and I've just not been able to shake it, so I decided to take this opportunity to make the design to match the name. So without further ado, allow me to introduce Ice Cap, the Summit Head Pokemon, an Ice Grass type. Look at this poor guy. It has to hold the weight of its massive noggin 24/7, or it will topple over and can't get up without help. This refers to the Greek titan Atlas, who was condemned to hold up the world for eternity by the Greek gods. While this design might not look entirely mushroom-like, it is based on the shaggy mane mushroom, which to me looked like a frost-capped mountain. The shaggy part is seen in the very poofy-looking snow and ice at the peaks of Ice Cap's head. There is definitely an argument to be made about it being part rock type with how craggy the gray part of its cap looks. Hey, this design is shaggy and craggy. Anyway, we could give it an ability like Rocky Payload to accommodate this. And that would actually give this Pokemon a type advantage triangle within itself, which is a pretty fun concept. I also realize this is the second Pokemon in a row with Cap in its name, but there are a limited amount of fungal related words to make punny names out of, and if you know this channel at all, you know I have to make puns. It's in my DNA, and I'm a dad. It's my blessing and my curse. For the electric type, I took inspiration from, trigger warning for Pokemon news channels, the Glimwood Tangle. This area is one of the most unique and interesting areas in any Pokemon game. Same with Balonlia, but for cities. Bioluminescent mushrooms definitely do exist in real life too, so I wanted to make a Pokemon that would fit in dark forests where mushrooms tend to grow. So here is Watake, the Luminary Pokemon, a grass electric type. Ha! Not the only one anymore, Rotom. Wait. This joke feels familiar. Anyway, Watake uses its light bulb-esque cap to light the dim parts of the forest for itself and other Pokemon, who may not have the best eyesight in the dark. With the light bulb being where the head is, it also refers to that light bulb idea moment in cartoons, and it would definitely have Illuminate as an ability. Morlul and Shiinotic? Never heard of them. Haha. Anyway, at level 26, Watake evolves into Lampella, the Luminous Pokemon. This Pokemon takes what Watake does and adds in some style points, with its cap being based on stained glass lampshades while also having a little Watake cap for its tail. This dude is such a little creature and I love it. With the glamour of this mushroom, I would have Illuminate become Bruxious' signature ability, Dazzling. There is absolutely no hiding with this Pokemon around. Its bright head lights up an entire acre of forest, much to the dismay of any nocturnal Pokemon living there. Speaking of nocturnal, you know what else is rumored to only come out at night? Aliens. There are a variety of different types of extraterrestrial life that have been shown throughout media over the years, and many have said that the way mushrooms act feels not of this world. So combine those concepts and you get something like Mycelium, the gray Pokemon, a pure steel type. Yes, this is the first fungus Pokemon without the grass type. I think Knackley was definitely a sign we can have mushroom-adjacent Pokemon without the need for the grass type, just like there are bug-adjacent Pokemon without being the bug type. Anyway, the mushroom this guy takes from are gray oyster mushrooms. Like many mushrooms, gray oysters are saprophagus, meaning they feed on decaying plant life. Much like how many aliens feed off of humans in one way or another. Where the metal part comes in is that gray oysters bioaccumulate lithium. So when combined with the trope of aliens being slimy, you get a reference to the only liquid metal, mercury. And with Mercury being the name of a planet, it acts as a double reference to aliens. For a triple reference, its general body and eye shape are like the stereotypical gray aliens described in many real-life encounters. Mycelium are an unusual sort of fungus Pokemon. They will only consume the rusted over parts of metal, unlike the similar diet and biostructure of Meltan. Due to this, they are drawn to long-abandoned buildings with metal infrastructure, but will usually hide underneath their caps when strangers approach. And that cap becomes its center of operations when at level 38 it evolves into our flying type rep, Shrew-FO, the interplanetary Pokemon, a steel flying type. This entire line was based on this name alone. When I came up with it, I absolutely had to make it a reality. It was a need, not a want. The mercury body of Mycelium has now become these slimy arms that intertwine to refer to the tractor beam trope of UFOs, which is used to abduct cows and other life on Earth, and mixes well with the alien ships from War of the Worlds that were biomechanical. Shrew-FO can definitely grab its opponents with those slimy arms, which is an experience I imagine feels akin to giving a xenomorph a hug. Shrew-FO will absorb Mycelium into its body, acting like a mobile colony, moving around to different locations where they can feed, produce more of themselves, and move on. This would be shown in their signature move, Invade Arts, which would essentially be a Steel-type version of Dragon Darts, but could hit up to 3 times and would have a base power of 33. We could give this Pokemon Skill Link to guarantee that 3 times, or even more scarily, give it Technician to boost that 33 base power to a 150. I wanted to switch things up in this video by giving 2 types to 1 Pokemon. With these more general thing of every type style videos, we aren't beholden to 1 type per Pokemon. Though I usually stick to that pattern, I wanted to break it with this video. In any case, next we have a few more designs I worked with Fungusmon on, so once again, make sure to check them out in the description. For the water type, I once again wanted to make a Pokemon that wasn't a grass type, yet was a mushroom. And you know what kind of underwater creature sure looks like a mushroom? A jellyfish! Game Freak has already made this connection with the Tentacool and Toadstool lines, and the mushroom jellyfish already exists. So I wanted to make kind of a reverse version of that concept with a jellyfish that looks like a mushroom. With that said, here is Mershroom, the Mer Jelly Pokemon, a pure water type. Its coloration is not only inspired by the mushroom jelly and its typing, but also the porcelain mushroom, which looks remarkably like a jellyfish on land. Okay, so we can all agree this is the most adorable Pokemon of the video so far. It has all the tropes of a starter Pokemon. Small body with a big old head and adorable, charming eyes. Those eyes aren't just for show either. It can use them to see incredible distances underwater, while its white top reflects the sun and moonlight, acting as a beacon for its natural prey. Those eyes and head only become more alluring when Mershroom evolves into our ghost type rep, Sporona, the sea trap Pokemon, a water ghost type. Is this our second water ghost type jellyfish Pokemon? Yes. Have there been 5 pure fire type simian Pokemon, 6 water rock type fossil Pokemon, 8 bug poison type early root bugs, and 27 normal flying type bird Pokemon? Also yes. In any case, Sporona is based on a couple new things, mainly the Veiled Lady, whose unique lattice-like cap works well as the tentacles of a jellyfish and acts as a way to loop in a water-based legendary spirit, La Llorona, the sobbing spirit of a bride who can be seen roaming near bodies of water. How she became a spirit is a bit too morbid for this video seeing as spooky season is over, but I will let you look it up at your own discretion. Anyway, Sporona will lurk sea or lakeside waiting for prey to venture close to the water's edge, which it will then draw them towards itself with their haunting yet enchanting song, which is their signature move, Haunting Voice, which both confuses and drops the defense of a target Pokemon. I wouldn't worry about this move being too broken though, because it would not have fantastic accuracy. For the opposite end of the type spectrum, we have the Fire type, which I wanted to give us another Grass-Fire type Pokemon aside from Scovillain. But how to do that? Well, how about cooking? There are many kinds of mushrooms used in cooking. And as a plant-based eater, there is none better than the chicken of the woods, which actually tastes like chicken, yet another ingredient used in cooking. So what if we had a shroom Pokemon that not only tastes like chicken, but looks like a chicken too? Then we would have ourselves something like Shrewster, the Mush Plume Pokemon, a grass-fire type. This fiery fowl, as its category implies, has the plumage made up of chicken of the woods, which it will shed by cooking them, heating up its internal body temperature to do so. Hope you like fried chicken, or in this case, mushroom, because this is yet another signature move, Shroom Snack, a special fire type move which will heal itself and allies by 20% of their HP, and remove the burn condition if applicable. Basically a weaker fire type version of jungle healing. Slap healer, hospitality, or natural cure on this mother clucker and you have yourself a super support Pokemon. I would also give it decent attack and defense stats to make it a fun, well-rounded Pokemon to play double battles with. The cooking is not the only fire type aspect of this Pokemon though. It also refers to the fire-breathing chicken yokai by the name of Basa Basa or Basan. The fire breath doesn't actually give off any heat nor ignite things, which is why I went with the internal heating of Shrewster's plumage, as it is heat without fire. But Shrewster would definitely learn Flamethrower and actually be a chicken able to breathe flames. Last but certainly not least, we have the Dragon type. How does one make a dragon and mushroom work together design-wise? Well, we could go with the Dragon Claw mushroom, which grow in tight clustered clumps from a central base, but they don't exactly scream mushroom Pokemon and don't have that shape that many associate with them. We can certainly bring that in as an inspiration by giving it claws and the move Dragon Claw, but I want more. Well, how about the red Flyagaric? This is what most people think of when they hear the word mushroom and was made even more famous by the Super Mario Bros. This fungus is also associated with the deity of Slavic paganism known as Veles or Volos, a god of the underworld, earth, water, and livestock who has been both imagined as a bearded Odin-like horned humanoid and as a chimeric dragon creature by Slavs. So let's mix all those together to get Dragaric, the spotted Pokemon, a dragon grass type, which at level 35 evolves into Eldaric, the bearded Pokemon. These two are similar to Paris and Parasect in that they have fungus growing on them, but unlike them, rather than being parasitically symbiotic, they are mutualistically symbiotic. The mushrooms feed on the draconic energy this line produces, and then the shrooms produce nutrition to the Pokemon so they don't have to eat, which makes it easier to make more draconic energy, becoming a cycle. Additionally, while the beard or fur of this line could just act as mycorrhizas or mushroom roots, it is actually inspired by the lion's mane or bearded tooth fungus, which grow in clumps of long dangling spines which live up to their namesake in appearance. beasts. I actually wanted to give these two a signature ability called Mush Rush, which would double the speed of these Pokemon when in the rain or grassy terrain, as mushrooms prefer to grow in raining conditions and can grow in fields where manure is present. And that was a mushroom of every type. Thanks so much to our incredible members whose names you can see on screen for supporting this channel with their hard-earned money, which you can also do by hitting that join button. Thanks so very much for watching, and I will see you all next time. The Legendary Beasts. 3 monstrous yet elegant Pokemon that were reincarnated by the Radiant Ho-Oh. They are emblematic of the rain, lightning, and fire caused by the storm that took the lives of the Pokemon these beasts were resurrected from. This gives us 3 types, so what if there was a legendary beast of every type? Hey everyone, Brandon here, and to celebrate reaching 500,000 subscribers on this channel, last month I hosted a contest where you all submitted designs to potentially be featured and redesigned for this video. You all definitely showed out for this contest, and I am so thankful for each and every person who entered. Even if your entry didn't make it in the video, know that I definitely saw it and I appreciate you so much for being a part of this contest. Anyway, there are actually a bunch of types of legendary beasts I already covered in a video previously on this channel, where we turned the evolutions into these beasts. So here are Kenzu, the Cerebral Pokemon, Anjo, the Night Pokemon, Shino, the Jungle Pokemon, Hyohi, the Blizzard Pokemon, Mashu, the Magic Pokemon, and Iji, the Great Pokemon. If you want to learn more about these Pokemon, make sure to check out the video linked here and in the description. Just like we did with the legendary bird of every type, let's begin with the flying type. This type had some pretty epic entries, such as this one by Zygarde, which looks like it was maybe done on the back of some math homework. I appreciate the dedication, but do your homework! Many entries for this type focused around the clouded leopard, with the cloud part taken literally, such as with these entries by Ethan is Real and Lo-Fi. Ethan's was simply adorable, and the prismatic clouds of Lo-Fi's are really eye-catching. But the concept that won out was Fangshi by Jakichi. The first one that really appealed to me about this one was the balance of design features. Each of the beasts has about 3 or 4 major features: the crest on their face or head, the mane or cape that runs along their back, and some kind of extra features such as their tail like Suicune, these bracelets on Entei who doesn't have a tail and has these spikes coming from its back, and Raikou has both an interesting design feature with its fangs and a unique tail, though both are a little bit more tapered down compared to Entei and Suicune. So this design I felt struck that balance well, though there were some slight things I wanted to change. As I said in the video announcing this contest, I worked with the talented Fungusmon to redesign these beasts, so that they could all look consistent since we had so many different art styles featured in this contest, and this is supposed to be a cohesive group of Pokemon, so make sure to check out Fungus's link in the description. With that said, I worked with Fungus to turn Fangshi into Futen, the Cloud Pokemon. With Suicune being said to be a reincarnation of the North Wind, this Pokemon is a reincarnation of the South Wind, creating mighty gusts that it sprints on around the Pokemon world, purifying the air and leaving the skies clear and bright. I thought the idea of this Pokemon being almost like a counterpart within the group would work well, given Suicune represents the rain of the storm, and so Futen represents the bright white clouds after the storm settled, the dawn of a new day. In Greek mythology, Boreas is the god of the North Wind, and is more associated with the cold wind of winter, whereas his brother Notus, the god of the South Wind, is associated with the warmer winds of late summer and early autumn. Notus was known to blow in Luku Notos, or White Notice, a wind that comes in to clear up the sky. While we're on the topic of Greek myths, let's talk about Futen's design changes, starting with these big old wings on its back legs which replaced its tail. This references the Greek messenger god Hermes, who was able to travel swiftly between the realms of the mortal and the divine with his winged sandals. The pattern alongside the body was changed to look more like an air current, and we made the clouds take up the spot of its tail like Entei. We also got rid of the fangs since that's one of Raikou's main features. The name was changed as well because it used the Chinese Hanzi in its name instead of the Japanese Kanji, which didn't align with the previous beasts. Initially, this Pokemon was inspired by Fengbo or Fangshi, a Chinese god of the wind with the head of a bird and the patterns of a leopard. So I wanted to try and maintain that vibe while also introducing some new elements. Its name Futen actually uses the exact same characters as Fangshi. Fu is the Onyomi version of Kaze, which means wind just like Fang, and Ten is the Onyomi version of Ama or Ame, which means heaven or divine. When put together, it makes Futen meaning heavenly wind, but it is also another name for Fujin, the Japanese god of the wind, which acts as the Shinto counterpart to Fengbo, and is the inspiration behind another legendary, Tornadus. I'm very happy that the naming convention could not only stay true to the original beasts and the ones we made for the previous video, but also the intent behind Jakichi's inspiration. Each of the legendary beasts has pressure and then inner focus as their hidden ability, and so spoilers for the evolution beast video, but instead I decided to give each of the new ones abilities like the original beast's hidden abilities in Gens 5 and 6, that had to do with absorbing their type. So for Futen, it would have the new hidden ability called Updraft, which if they are hit by a flying type move, their speed stat would be raised instead of taking damage. Up next, let's talk about the bug type. As I usually state in of every type videos that feature a mammalian creature as the focus, integrating insect-like elements is always a challenge. But there were a bunch of artists who took on that challenge, creating some absolutely incredible designs such as the sleek Kiko by Nui the Shark, the epically Japanese-feeling Nuikyo by Tombi, this odd yet intriguing design by Zebra Knight, and this adorable design by Purpley XEO. These were all fantastic, but just didn't come close enough to the elements of the rest of the beasts, so I would have to have changed the designs a bit too much. The same can be said for Bagukan by Jess the Dex, which came so close to winning, but I just could not alter this design in any way without sacrificing what makes it cool. I really appreciated the concept art page as well, so thanks for that. So now for the winner, we have Ryocho by 100 Jams. This design is based around dragonflies, beetles, and the black-footed cat, the smallest cat in Africa, which fits for the bug type. According to Jams, this whole design has a theme of hunting, with the black-footed cat and the dragonfly being the most successful hunters of their respective classes, with a kill rate of 60% and 95% respectively. Its long web-like hair is an element referring to the Amazons of Greek myth, female warriors and hunters that were known for their physical strength and agility, and their skills in archery, horse riding, and combat. The dragonfly part of this design also ties in with the mythological first emperor of Japan, Jimmu. There is a legend that he was bitten by a mosquito that was subsequently eaten by a dragonfly, which is said to be an interpretation of where one of Japan's classical names, Akitsushima, or Dragonfly Island, comes from. Phew! That is a lot of lore packed into one design, and if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know that is absolutely right up my alley. The design and lore itself didn't need much changing, so Fungus and I turned Kyocho into Reiso, the swarm Pokemon. So as I said, and as you can see, we didn't change too terribly much. The main thing was changing its crest so it was a bit more angular and covered the ears of the previous design, since legendary beasts don't have them, gave it these mandibles to further make this feel like a bug, and made its horns a bit smaller and asymmetrical. The biggest thing that changed was the name. I looked and looked and looked, and I could not find a single case of this kanji Jams used being pronounced Ryo, though it does mean dragonfly, but I found it pronounced as Rei. The second one used for the name is correct and means hunting, but without the dragonfly aspect, the double meaning is lost with it. So I tried to find a kanji for Rei that had a double meaning, and the closest to hunter I could find were a few kanji for whetstone or sharpen, which hunters most definitely do and fits the edgier appearance of this design. Cho does in fact mean chief, but the name Reicho just brings back memories of an infamous hairstyle and someone who can't read. So that's when I looked again and found So, which means ancestor or forefather, which is perfect given this design's inspiration of Jimmu, a forefather of Japanese history. And when you add in that U to So, putting so at the end of a word means it looks like. So the name basically means it looks like a dragonfly. And Reiso certainly does, and its hunting rate reflects a dragonfly too. It is a supreme hunter that was reborn thanks to Ho-Oh to chase down and find each of the legendary beasts and bring them together once more before their creator. Why? We'll find out later. For its hidden ability, we have Honey Hoover, where if hit by a bug-type move, it will regain HP instead of taking damage. Hoover, while a vacuum brand, has also become synonymous with eating in excess. And we get that nice alliteration. Onto the rock type, we had solid entries with things like Zancho from D&D Fakemon, which has a cool mountainous design, and Ichiko from Luke's Raid Draw Stuff, which almost feels like a lost member of the Weather Trio with its Kintsugi inspiration. There is also a hilarious entry from Kuro-kun called Chirudo, which is a mix of Chester Cheetah and Cheeto Dust. I got quite a laugh out of this one, so thank you for that. Anyway, the design I chose for this one was from Sparts23. It is inspired by Servals and the Tiger's Eye Gemstone, which I thought was a really fun angle for the rock type. And with its coloration, it almost looks like layers of sediment. So with Fungus, we turned this design into Gonseki, the rock slide Pokemon. So with this design, we changed the ears so they were a little less literal as, like I said before, the beasts don't have them. And we took the single tooth and exaggerated it into these two fang-like parts of its crest that look a little bit like stalactites since they hang from the mouth area. I know I said previously that fangs were kind of Raikou thing, but these felt different enough as they are a part of the crest rather than inside the mouth, and this design is inspired by Tiger's Eye, so for it to be the only other one with saber-tooth-like fangs made sense to me. We also made the stripes a bit more angular to help with the rock-type feeling and further bring out the layers of sediment idea. It also makes the mane look a little bit more dramatic, with it feeling soft against the otherwise hard features. Speaking of, the mane is posed so it looks like a rock slide, its category's namesake. So for its name, it comes from Gon, which means rock or stone, and Seki, which means eminence, something royalty is often called. It is time to hit subscribe, like, and leave a comment down below, your eminence. Put together, Gonseki also means stone, so you could most certainly say this Pokemon rocks. Yeah, I'll take a lap for that one. Ganseki was reborn from a Pokemon involved in another tragedy that took place in Johto. A mighty rock slide threatened to destroy Ekritique City, when a brave and strong Pokemon stepped in to stop it, though it sacrificed itself in the process. Ho-Oh honored this act of courage by reincarnating the Pokemon so it had the power to protect from future disasters, by harnessing the one that led to its end. With that said, Ganseki's hidden ability would be Bedrock, which would raise the power of its rock-type moves if it was hit by one. Next, we have the Fighting type. For this type, there were some super tough looking designs like these ones by Cryptozool and Septic Skeptic that I quite enjoyed, which are both based on the Nemean Lion, though the design I chose for this type was Senjin by Artist Eve. The braids used throughout this cheetah-inspired design really caught my eye and gave me ideas on what I wanted to expand upon in the redesign. So here is Senshin, the war Pokemon. So obviously I loved the braids and wanted to keep them. I also wanted to use them as the basis to work in another bit of inspiration. While this was initially supposed to be based on a cheetah, we changed the design to be more leopard-like, as well as changed the pattern to this one on its leg specifically to reference the Zulu people of South Africa. They are South Africa's native people and are the largest ethnic group and nation within it. There's one particular famous leader, warrior, and founder of the state, King Shaka Kazenga Kona. The warriors of the Zulu are known for wearing leopard skins and tails, which are signs of bravery and courage in battle, a tradition started by Shaka which gained popularity when King Setsueo donned a leopard pelt in the 1890s. The pattern on its side is meant to reference the shield these warriors wield as well. Leopards are revered by the Zulu people, and many parts of the leopard were used within their culture, such as the teeth and claws to make beads for the necklace, which were a sign of power and achievement, or used in medicine to promote business stability. And if you want to promote the stability of this channel, hit that join button. Our incredible members get access to perks like videos early, a shout out at the end of my videos, and can even help fund one fake bun design per month that they are credited for. All the while, you get to know you are supporting this channel so I can keep making videos just like this. So go ahead and hit that join button and become a member now. Back to Senshin though. With the leopard's importance to the Zulu people, it should have part of its name with something about reverence and even the divine. The name already had a good basis with Sen meaning war and Jin meaning divine or god, but I wanted to make one slight change, turning Jin into Shin, which means exactly the same thing and the kanji is the same. There's a beast later in this video that also has Jin in its name, so I didn't want to have two with the same last part. Another fun fact about this name is that if you use the kunyomi for these two kanji, Ikusagami, it means god of war, Ares, or Mars, the Greek or Roman gods of war. It is also how the famous video game franchise is titled in Japan. Senshin also sounds like Henshin, which means transform in Japanese, much like the beasts were transformed from regular Pokemon. During the rage of battle in the Great Pokemon War, many Pokemon and people were lost. Two of them were a hero and his faithful companion who tried their best to put a stop to the war before it broke out, but were ultimately lost among the carnage. Ho-Oh took the souls of these two, the fallen warriors, and their Pokemon, and infused them all into one, Senshin, who uses its fearsome strength to keep the rumblings of war at bay. Some say that it absorbs the will to fight from Pokemon and people alike, and this is why there has not been a major war since. Senshin's hidden ability would be called Pacifist, which instead of taking damage from fighting type moves, its speed stat is increased. Honestly, I was between Pacifist, Punch Puller, Ceasefire, and Armistice for names, so whichever you feel fits best works too. From there, let's move on to the ground type. Many entries for this type had some form of Egyptian inspiration, such as Stolidex's fantastic Bastet and Sphinx Cat inspired Miraju, and the awesome Sphinx of Giza inspired entries of Raidmon and Swellomello. Before I move on though, I just have to ask, why is there so much canvas and so little entry on this one? It's a great design, but how teeny tiny it was just made me laugh. Anyway, the one I picked for this type is Kyukusu from Tridex. This is yet another Sphinx of Giza inspired design, but the elements felt tapered down enough that there was room for a bit of a redesign. So here is the newly redesigned and renamed Sandai, the Sandstorm Pokemon. So we both fleshed out and dialed down parts of the original design. We tried to make the head crest a little bit less literal with its Nemesis inspiration by flattening it out a bit and having the pattern go all the way to its feet. We also took the block texture off the tail and moved it somewhere else, but kept the pyramid inspiration there so it felt a little less direct. Sandai is a symbol of royal status. It is said that only royalty may see this Pokemon in their lifetime. There are tales of this Pokemon being a reincarnation of a man who once fought with a fierce creature threatening his kingdom, winning using only his bare hands. Sandai would very easily get Earth Eater as its hidden ability since it already exists, making my job of coming up with these a lot easier. As far as its name, it comes from San with this kanji meaning sand, and Dai with this kanji meaning large, grand, or great. Many ancient rulers have the Great behind their name, with Khafre, whose likeness was used to make the Sphinx of Giza, being one of them, Khafre the Great. Also, if you combine the kanji, Sandai comes together to mean the Big Three. No, not those big three, which are Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach, and only those three. These big three, the pyramids of Giza which the tale makes reference to. And above all else, there is sand literally in its name. Poison had a really cool selection of entries as people tried different things to represent the type, such as this mushroom-based entry from Shellshocker 24, which is actually a reincarnation of their poison type evolution, playing into the theory we covered in the previous video. There's also this design by Raidmon that had a cool Maleficent vibe to it, and this Poison Gas Jaguar by Bra Jonathan 1. The design I picked for this type was Tsuchizoku by Kurokun 56. This beast fit nearly perfectly into the design tropes we discussed toward the beginning of this video, so I picked it not only for that reason, but because it displays the poison type in such a subtle way. Kind of like the nature of poison, it is supposed to be hidden, unsuspected by the target of said poisoning. So we kept a lot of those elements when we redesigned it into Dokuga, the Venom Pokemon. So let's talk about the name first, since the design didn't change a massive amount. The original's name was just a bit too long, as every name thus far has only had 2 to 3 syllables. Dokuga's name comes from Doku, which means poison or venom, and Ga, meaning palace, a place where royalty resides. Look, there are only so many royalty or divine related words in Japanese, okay? Anyway, Ga can also mean fang, so together it can mean poison fang or palace of poison, which honestly sounds like it belongs in Jujutsu Kaisen. Domain expansion, palace of poison. Kuga also means cougar in Japanese, and is actually a case of garaigo, which is taking English words and using katakana to say them. Kuga, cougar. Cougars or mountain lions can also be black panthers alongside leopards and jaguars. So design-wise, we changed up small things. Generally, we changed things so they looked a little bit more natural to this design, combining the spikes with the feet rather than the bracelet look they had before, getting rid of the ears in favor of more spikes, and changing the tail to look less metallic and more like the end of a tail. Fungus added a little skull motif in there as well, which many toxic things come labeled with, and the shape refers to an arrow, so in combination, it is a poison-tipped arrow. The tale of Dokuga goes as such. Once there was a purloin that was adopted and raised by poison-type Pokemon. All the poison types loved and respected it as one of their own, but the purloin wished more than anything that it could be the same type as its friends and family. One day while playing with its friends, Purloin accidentally landed on one of its friends' sharp venomous spikes, and became very badly poisoned. With only other poison types around, there was no way to cure it, so the Pokemon called out for help, but it was too late. The tears of these Pokemon summoned a miracle, Ho-Oh's arrival, in which it resurrected the Purloin into the powerful Dokuga, now able to live with its friends and family and protect them with its newfound power. Long after its friends and family had passed, it still rules over and safeguards poison-type Pokemon. And with its new hidden ability, Antidotal, Dokuga's body can absorb the toxins from poison-type moves and use them to restore its HP. Next, we have the type that by far had the most entries in this contest, Ghost. There were so many spectacular, or should I say spooktacular, designs. Like these designs by Septic Skeptic, Selegosada, Tango Mingo, and Grandstar. There was also this design called Shorei by Juno that was inspired by that terrifying yet epic tiger drawing trend from a bit ago, which I thought was a cool reference. There was also this more skinny and tall design by Zebra Knight that had a creepy yet intriguing silhouette compared to the other beasts. But the one I chose in the end was this design by Jolly Mega 97. Its more skeletal, white tiger or liger and Roman inspired bases stood out to me. Coincidentally enough, Jolly Mega also won for the Ghost type category for the 300k contest, and so they drew Shadonsei interacting with this design, which I found really endearing. With that said, the redesigning process held a few changes, so here is Yusho, the Haunt Pokemon. So let's talk changes. The face, feet, and stripes were made to exaggerate that skeletal feeling, and then we changed the laurels to look more like a natural part of this design. Since it already has this wild wispy hair, we incorporated it into that. Jolly Mega took inspiration from Julius Caesar, whose demise is probably one of the most famous in human history. It is also inspired by Pluto or Despater, the Roman god of death. The poem On the Abduction of Prosperina by Claudian circa 404 AD describes Pluto to be more leonine. So in combination with Caesar, who brought many lions and tigers for Venatio, the hunting of animals for entertainment, this form altogether is a solid ghost-type liger. Legends tell of Yusho appearing from underneath the rubble of the burned tower shortly after the beasts and Ho-Oh fled, and that it is a reincarnation of the bones and bodies of the 3 Pokemon lost in the fire. Yusho's more frightening appearance compared to the original beasts made the villagers distraught with fear, chasing it away like the others. The villagers then reconsidered their initial reaction to Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, living with that regret and passing it down through the generations. Yusho's name comes from Yu, meaning ghost or the dark, and Sho, meaning commander, general, or admiral, much like Caesar was the commander of the Gallic armies, and is where we get the basis for the word shogun. Yusho using these kanji also means victory, which you could say Yusho's reincarnation is a victory over death. Yusho's hidden ability would be called Soul Siphon, which if hit by a ghost type move, it absorbs it and uses it to make its ghost type moves more powerful. Our penultimate type is Steel. I quite enjoyed the variety presented by this type, like this Tauti-inspired design by Shimori Shimamoto, or this very armored design by Nui the Shark, which looks like the companion for a BBEG in D&D. And you almost know me too well because these designs by Mouthman and Bones are inspired by mecha or Zords like those seen in Power Rangers or Voltron, which I just adored. The design I chose for this type though was this one by Anafos211. Its Viking and Lynx inspirations work so well with the Beast's design tropes, and it had such a unique silhouette while still feeling like the originals. Fungus and I redesigned it into Kinhei, the Ferris Pokemon. We made this design slightly more bulky and adjusted the proportions slightly to make the pose feel more intimidating. Now it feels a bit more bear-like, which could work as a reference to Berserkers, which get their name from bears. We also took out the literal axe tail and instead put more emphasis on the large bracelets and gave it a new pattern on its backside and horns, with them all having a Viking knot inspiration. I also added a bit of inspiration from Canute the Great, yet another great, who was the Viking king of England, Denmark, and Norway, uniting them under his rule, being known as the North Sea Empire. Its name, Kinhei, comes from kin, which means metal or gold, but this specific kanji can be broken down into 3 parts. Hito, which means person or roof, O, which means king, and this symbol, which can translate to grass, plants, or horns. Given this is a Viking king-inspired design, a kanji that breaks down to mean horned roof, aka helmet, king, is definitely fitting. The second part translates to majesty, as in your majesty. With this kanji though, hei can also mean money, so kinhei can either mean metal majesty or gold coin, like the treasure Vikings pillaged to find. And with kinhei's more bulky design, weakness to fire, and its name ending with A, this most definitely could act as a counterpart to Entei. Kinhei was born out of a calamity taking place in Galar before the harnessing of Dynamax energy. A Pokemon had accidentally come upon a wellspring of this energy and painfully Dynamaxed into a raging beast without control over its actions. It threatened to destroy the entire region before Zacian and Zamazenta stepped in to regretfully take down this Pokemon. The sudden growth and defeat of this Pokemon left its body in shambles. Ho-Oh, which was on its way to visit the Dyna Tree, came across this Pokemon and resurrected it into Kinhei, bringing it north away from Galar, where it now acts as a protector. Its hidden ability would be Iron Eater. The hidden ability I also gave the pseudo of the Devar region, Wakpak, making Steel-type moves used against this Pokemon heal HP instead of doing damage. Last but certainly not least, we have the Dragon type. This was definitely a hard one because Dragon is just one of those dominating types. It has a certain aura of intimidation and authority, at least to me. There were definitely some solid entries that fit that description, such as Hiryu by Staladex, Reikyu from Eternal Demon, Ryushu by Torterart, and this entry from Surfer Rolf. The design that truly captured this in my eyes though was this entry by the Red Dragon Nerd. It truly feels like a king with its crest, mane, and the jewel on its neck. I definitely wanted to keep those elements but change them so it didn't feel so much like a water type since we already have Suicune as our water representative. So with that, Fungus and I created Ryujin, the Master Pokemon. Obviously, this is probably the most dramatic redesign of the video, but we are actually going to start with its name because it informs how we went about making changes. So Ryu means dragon and Jin means god or divine, but Ryujin itself is actually a deity in the Japanese pantheon. It is a dragon god of the sea, controlling the tide with its magic tide jewels, and is a bringer of lightning and rain, like the storm that both caused and put out the fire of the burned tower. Jimmu, the first emperor of Japan who we spoke of earlier, was actually said to be the grandson of Ryujin. This Pokemon is also inspired by Koma Inu, or lion dogs, that are guardians of temples in both Japan and China, linking it to both the mysterious mammalian nature of the beasts, with some calling them cats or others calling them dogs, and the burned tower, which originally acted as a temple to commune with Lugia, a legendary of the sea. So now let's move on to the design changes. It originally had water and lightning elements, but the water overloaded this design with the cape and coloration, so we tried to balance that out more by not only changing the cape to be more of a cowl, but also adding in the fire type. This is because this Pokemon represents all 3 parts of the burning of the Brass Tower. Represented in its jewel and crest are the water, fire, and electric types, which Dragon is resistant to, so it would make sense for this Pokemon to have mastery over them. We also tried to change some of the cloud elements so it didn't overshadow Futen, but could refer to before and after the storm's appearance, essentially representing the beast's resurrection as well. Though I would love to give it a hidden ability that would act like a combo of Flash Fire, Water, and Volt Absorb, that would be incredibly broken. So we will just stick with tradition and give it the new ability Drake Drain, which absorbs damage from Dragon-type moves and turns it into a boost for its Dragon-type moves. So remember earlier in the video when I said Ho-Oh had Reizo hunt down all the beasts? That was to bring them together to meet the youngest but most powerful beast of all, Ryujin. Ryujin's role is to remain within the burned tower, acting as a master, guide, or guardian to any beasts that find themselves in Johto, acting as a warning to humans who try to hurt or take advantage of the beast's strength. Thank you to everyone who participated in the 500k contest and for watching, subscribing, liking, and commenting so we could reach this amazing milestone. Don't forget to pick up some 500k merch before it goes away in 3 days. And thank you so much to our incredible members who support this channel with their hard-earned money and allow me to continue to pay artists so I can make videos like this and more in the new year, which you can also do by hitting that join button. And with that, I will see you guys next year.